I'm so happy to see everyone here today. Thank you so much for coming. I see some folks just at the back finishing up with grabbing their breakfast and coffee. There's lots of room in the front 2 tables here, so feel welcome to set up there. So once again, welcome. Hi, Catherine. Once again, welcome to the 2023 St. Jamestown Leadership Forum. Please give yourselves a round of applause for being here. This event is a hybrid event, so I'm going to say hi to everyone online. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. Oh, oopsies. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, so I'm going to get us started off this morning with the land acknowledgement, and then I'm going to pass it off to our MCs for today. Good morning. We have all gathered this morning to celebrate the long-standing legacy of the St. Jamestown community. St. Jamestown, like the city of Toronto itself, is located on Treaty 13 land of the Mississaugas, the Huron-Wendat, Petun, the Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee. I'd like to tell you a story about the two-row wampum. The two-row wampum is one of the oldest agreements between what Indigenous peoples call the original people and European settlers. According to Mohawk historian Ray Fadden, the Dutch traders who had started arriving in the 1600s had proposed a patriarchal relationship with them as the fathers to the Haudenosaunee sons. The Haudenosaunee rejected this. Ray Fadden writes, "We will not be like father and son, but like brothers. Our treaties symbolize two paths, two vessels, traveling down the same river." Sorry. One, a birch bark canoe, will be for the Mohawk people, their lives, their customs, and their ways. The other, a ship, will be for the white people and their laws, their custom, and their ways. We shall each travel the river together, side by side, but in our own boat. Neither of us will make compulsory laws nor interfere in the internal affairs of the other. Neither of us will try to steer the other's vessel. The Haudenosaunee see the two-row wampum belt as an agreement of peace and friendship that would last forever. Its significance with the Haudenosaunee people was so substantial that it has become the foundation of all treaties and agreements they have come into with the European settlers. The two-row wampum is more than just an agreement. It is a philosophy and belief of balance and harmony, a belief in non-dominance. Its principles say that any two autonomous partners, whether it be a couple in a relationship or two nations, can live together in peace and friendship. So I ask you to think about the two-row wampum, what it means to you in your own life, in your community, your country, and what it means across the world. For the last few weeks, we have bared witness to the humanitarian crisis happening in Gaza. We mourn with all those who have lost loved ones in Gaza and Israel. And we condemn all acts of violence that have harmed and continue to harm children, men, women, and all of those who are most vulnerable in the region. I am inspired by a statement that was issued by the Ontario Council of Agencies Serving Immigrants, issued October 19, 2023, which calls for an immediate ceasefire in the region, immediate relief, safety, and aid for Palestinians trapped in Gaza, and immediate safe relief of all hostages. Our shared mandates for neighborhood-wide health calls us to take care of those members of our communities here in St. Jamestown who are directly impacted, and those who take to the streets to mourn and organize. This moment calls us to build tools and design programs which encourage bonds of care and bravery so that we can heal and ward against together fear, hate, and insecurities that ground Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and white supremacy. Today, we are gathered here to celebrate the leadership in St. Jamestown. Many of us in St. Jamestown have ancestors who have come from traditional lands impacted by colonization and imperialism. While many come as newcomers, we also recognize that so many are also stateless, live here as refugees, or come as migrant workers. We also remember those ancestors brought here through the transatlantic slave trade, and we honor their descendants. As we meet here today in person and virtually, we live in the contradictions of being treaty peoples in the midst of broken treaties and persistent inaction and idling. I commit to finding the right words, to go in searching for the right words, the right thoughts, the heart and actions to align myself with Indigenous rights and self-determination. I want to call on Minada and Deepika now, who will open up the meeting. Thank you, Minada.
Thank you, Anna Teresa Portillo, for opening today's forum with this thoughtful land acknowledgement. Thank you, everyone, for joining today in person and online. My name is Minara Begum, and I'm the co-chair of Service Provider Network and representing Hospice Toronto. We are very happy to welcome everyone to this 4th St. Jamestown Leadership Forum. I would like to take a moment to thank Wellesley Community Center for hosting us and St. Jamestown Catering Collective for catering breakfast and lunch today. Also, I'd like to thank the artist, Jen Backman, who created this beautiful illustration. The illustration captures our neighborhood and the diverse group of people who call it home. We have tried to capture the various services and activities that are available in the neighborhood. Hope you all enjoy it as much as we enjoyed creating it. At the end of the forum today, you all will receive a framed copy of this beautiful illustration. Now, I'm calling Deepika Papenja, co-chair of St. Jamestown Residents Council, to talk about some housekeeping for today. Deepika.
Thank you, Minara. And once again, good morning and a very warm welcome to all of you today. My name is Deepika, and I'm the co-chair of the St. Jamestown Residents Council. We're an organization that has existed for almost about 2 years now, consisting of people who live in and care for St. Jamestown. We have an hybrid event today, so we'll be recording and taking pictures. If you do not want to be in pictures, make sure you have a blue dot sticker on your name tag, please. As a confidentiality and transparency matter, please note anything that you write in the online breakout room will be viewable in the main room, and private messages sent through the private chat function will become a part of the recorded meeting documents. We have some very focused and exciting objectives we are hoping to achieve today. Convene the St. Jamestown leaders for an opportunity to get to know each other and encourage collaborations. Discuss place-based projects to support St. Jamestown neighborhood priorities. Encourage the implementation of community wealth building strategies such as local and equitable hiring, local purchasing, place-based investing, and identifying key follow-up action items for ongoing community planning. I will now go over the agenda for today. We have already had breakfast and we've done a bit of networking. At 9:15, right after I finish talking, we will have the health access presentation. At 9:35 or a little later, because we started a little late, we'll have our first group discussion on deepening our collaborations for 30 minutes. Then we will follow it up with the reporting back for about 10 minutes. Following which we will have a break for 10 minutes. If you're looking for washroom, when you exit this room, they will be on your left-hand side. We will start with the second group discussion after the break for an hour, 10 minutes on deepening our reach, followed by the reporting back for that particular group discussion. And then we will have closing remarks and lunch for all of us. I now hand it over back to Minara to introduce our keynote speakers.
Thank you, Deepika. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Nolini Pandalangat and Chris Habal to give a presentation on health access. I'm requesting Nolini and Chris to come forward. Nolini, forgive me for my pronunciation. It's Pandalangat. Sorry, Vice President, Programs and Services, West Toronto Community Health Services. Today, she is joining us from West Toronto Community Health Services. Nolini worked on the initial design of the health access model, in addition to playing a leadership role in its implementation and refinement of for several years while she was at Sherborne Health. Nolini is a recognized leader in refugee and newcomer health, equity, diversity, inclusion, and cultural competence. Her PhD focus is on mental health in visible minority communities and implications for culturally competent services. Big hand for Nolini. Chris Habal, she is the Executive Director of Progress Place, a community-based nonprofit mental health and addiction recovery center based on the Clubhouse model and psychosocial rehabilitation principles. Leader and service provider in the field of mental health and addiction with years of experience and knowledge working in administration, change management, program and community development, and evaluation. Chris worked with cross-sectoral stakeholders to develop a seniors mental health day program in St. Jamestown and the health access hub in Western Mount Dennis community. Welcome, Chris. A big hand for Chris too. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Minara. Good morning, everyone. And again, welcome. It's so nice to be here with all of you to celebrate all the accomplishments in St. Jamestown. As Minara said, I'm Chris, and I'm so grateful to be able to share with you some of the history with my co-presenter, Nolini. I just want to take can you hear me? Okay. I was getting the get it closer to your mouth cue. So I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge Nolini and Ravi, who really had the vision to create the health access table. And we're so fortunate that Nolini was able to come back and join us for this presentation today. As most of you have heard, probably all of you, that the health access table really started as a result of the fire at 650 Parliament. And it really showed us that there was an urgent need to support so many different residents. And we noticed that people were falling through the cracks because there was really no ability to kind of coordinate all the services, even though there seemed to be enough services. So that's when we started looking at the whole health access model. I think we'll go into a bit more history as we go along. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over slowly to Melanie. The duck's missing? Okay. I'm not good at singing and dancing or to entertain you all. So sorry. Yep.
Morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Leadership Forum. Can you hear me okay? Perfect. Great. It's really nice to be back here in St. Jamestown. I still very much feel part of the community. And today we are going to be talking about the health access model and really the intention of this presentation, because I think one of the focal points of today's leadership forum is to look at a place-based strategy, right? And population health initiatives probably within that place-based strategy. So I think this model will give us an orientation into how we have been doing things here in St. Jamestown. Many of you are aware, but we thought we would kind of make it into a presentation and a model. And welcome everyone online as well. Nice to see you all. Okay. So while Aravind is getting the presentation set, I'm just going to be talking about the model. We wanted to keep it simple and very high level in terms of what the model is. It's really based on the work that needs to be done, when we work as part of a neighborhood. And so there are three aspects to the model. One is integrated care. The second is a neighborhood-based approach. And the third and very important, most important thing is that it is community-driven. So these are the three aspects of the model. And I will go, myself and Chris will go into each one of these aspects very briefly, and hopefully we have some time for discussion after that. Yeah, that's okay. So you'll have to bear with me and, think of the presentation online while I talk. So in terms of the integrated care, it was a very, very intentional way that we went about doing things. So integrated care has three aspects to it. So one is collaborative governance. The second is integrated service delivery. And the third one is a collective identity. So these are the foundations on which integrated care has been built. Yeah, I'm just going to wait because it will help if the presentation is up for the model. Perfect. Let's go to the next. So these are the aspects of the model: integrated care, community-driven, and neighborhood-based. And while any model evolves in time, right? It's not that we have all our T's crossed and our I's dotted when we start on a model. While it evolved over time, it was also pretty intentional. Right from the beginning, Health Access in Jamestown and the leadership table and the community were very clear that we did not want co-location or collaborative services. What we wanted was integrated services, an integrated service model, and to be available and accessible to the community. So which is why it's localized and neighborhood-based. And initially, we were thinking that it should be community informed. So that was where our starting point was, that it be community informed, there was community engagement, but very soon it became a community-driven model. And this is what we have now. So we have an integrated care model that's neighborhood-based and community-driven. Why is it not moving? Okay, great. So with the integrated care model, I just talked about the foundations of the integrated care model. So collaborative governance, integrated service delivery, and collective identity. So looking at collaborative governance, why is it important to have collaborative governance? So we're very proud to say here in St. Jamestown that this is a mini OAT model that really preceded the OAT, to be honest. And so service providers got together at a table and really committed to a common vision and a common goal, which was to connect people to services within 2 business days and to identify high need people facing multiple challenges to care. And so we had a way of identifying them through our intake process and to prioritize them in care, but at the same time, providing care to the and services with working with the larger community. So this is the model that was conceived. And so we have a health access executive table of around 15 to, I think more than that now, probably 17 service providers, and the leadership sits at this health access table so that decisions around resources and resource sharing can be made. Because the reality is that we cannot go behind funding every time there is a need, right? So when we, and we do go behind funding, and we'll talk about that very soon, because there are unmet needs and gaps in services. But when you pool together resources, we are able to do more than we can do as a single agency. And so those decisions around resource sharing can be made because it is a leadership table. The next aspect, which is really, really important and also feeds into the localized piece, is that we have a very effective backbone structure, which is a community hub. Everyone knows this in Jamestown Community Corner, I'm sure. So that is the hub, and that is really a physical space within which and beyond health access in Jamestown operates. So there is a space for people to convene, service providers, residents, other stakeholders. And this backbone, the corner, as you know, is not incorporated, and this is by design. It is co-led by 2 organizations, Sherborne Health and TNO, but also supported by anchor organizations, TNG and Progress Place. So that is the model of the backbone that we have for our integrated care. And finally, we talk about feeder tables, because in governance, you need to be informed, right, to plan. And not all information can come from a single table. So with the governance model, we have feeder tables, and most important, the direct feeder table is the health access frontline table. So just as we have a health access governance table, we have a health access frontline table, which is made of frontline service providers of all those 15 organizations who are the first point of contact when a referral is made. So these service providers get together, I believe it is quarterly, to talk about what their challenges are, how the referrals are going, what are some of the unmet needs. And then this gets fed into the governance table as an information sharing. Apart from this, mostly everyone at the Health Access Executive table is also at one of the other tables that I have listed there. And so information from there also comes into Health Access Executive for the planning. So I'm now going to turn it to Chris for talking about the other aspects of integrated care.
Thanks, Nalini. So as you can see, here are all the partners that are part of the Health Access Executive for the collective governance. Okay, and so further to integrated care, we wanted to ensure that we had a shared intake so that all organizations weren't duplicating their workload. So we developed a common intake and referral form. And all the service providers go, like, either they went through an orientation back then or they continue to as you join on, so that you're very familiar with the services to be able to refer people. And as Nalini mentioned, we work really hard at the warm transfer within 2 days. Either we can walk someone over to a service or make that initial contact to make sure the person doesn't fall through the crack. I'm just going to jump ahead to the integrated service hub of 20 organizations on site plus 20 referral pathways. There's shared spaces for one-on-one and group programming. As was mentioned, it's more of a hub and spoke model with various access points that are different, but single point of contact. So I wanted to give an example of some of the responsive services. I already mentioned the fire that happened, and that was our inception. And then there was another project that developed. So as a few of us were on the service provider network way back many years ago, we all were identifying that there were many seniors living alone in the St. Jamestown community, in the northern part of the St. Jamestown community. And we were also identified that within our organizations, people were aging, and we started to think what lies ahead for people living by themselves as they're aging. And we all knew that long-term care housing was not that accessible. So we were trying to brainstorm how we could further support people. And at that time, the providers were Dixon Hall, Hospice Toronto, Fred Victor, the City of Toronto, the Public Health, Progress Place, and obviously the coroner. We were able to have many, many meetings for, I think it went on like our meetings, and we started to gather feedback from the community and from seniors in terms of what they thought the needs could be. And as we got more information, we decided to develop a senior program, like a kind of like a day program, but with the focus on mental health and physical wellness. So here we just celebrated our 11th anniversary, actually this month, and it continues to go. Current partners are Progress Place and Dixon Hall, and there's many others that provide supports with different workshops and programming from time to time. So we're so grateful. I think our current membership for the seniors program is just over 200 people. Some of that is limited due to space and resources, because we did apply and we were lucky that we received some funding from the LIN back then, but it was for a very little amount. So we continue to apply for various grants over the years, but it's just a really good example of how within the service provider network, we were able to gather, identify a need with no resources and come up with a program, pilot it, and then continue to show the impact and apply for funds. So even though we talk about integrated care, we always try really hard to make sure that we have a collective identity. So really, it's not so important who the organizations necessarily are, because the whole point is that people are getting the services they need. And since there's one single point of contact for access, and ensuring that the pathway is smooth, we just make sure that it doesn't matter to the client as long as they're getting the services. All that other information gets extremely overwhelming for them. So again, as we mentioned about the common intake, and then the corner helps with the database, the website, a newsletter, and of course the governance. And we do extensive community engagement to ensure that everything is integrated and collaborative to show that collective identity. It's over to you.
So we are moving on to the next aspect of, the model, which is neighborhood-based care. And again, with the neighborhood-based care, the foundational elements are having a backbone community hub within the neighborhood with a hub and spoke model, and having a very inclusive neighborhood mechanism for, kind of trying to find the right word, but really a very inclusive, building a very inclusive environment. So these are the foundations: inclusivity, the hub and spoke model, and the backbone community hub are foundational to the neighborhood-based model of care. So with the backbone community hub, the corner, I'm not going to go too much into the history of the corner, but when the space became available, when a healthcare center moved from there, there was community consultations that happened with led by service providers and residents, and that was how the corner came to be. And that was how the decisions were made around what services need to go into the corner. So it was co-designed right from the very beginning. There was a contest to name the corner, and that's how the name came about. I think it was a teenager in the community that, if I'm not mistaken, that kind of proposed this name, and so that was adopted. Like I said, it is not incorporated, and so it is supported by anchor organizations and other partners, and then the operations are supported by the lead organizations. And the corner itself has a governance body, which is called the steering committee, and it has a steering committee of 8 residents and 5 service providers. And this was also intentional again. It is a collaborative space, and I'm not going to go into it because we've just spoken about it. And there's a lot of focus in terms of equity and population health-based activities. So there are income tax clinics, apart from the regular work at the corner and the intake and referrals. When food insecurity was a problem during COVID, we converted the corner into a food hub at that point in time. Income tax clinics are run every year for those people who need the support. So different things at different points in times, newcomer programming and all of that. It has been a response center, like I said, the COVID response, the crisis. Without the corner, without that backbone, we would not have been able to run these vaccine clinics in WCC. To the scope, and many partners were involved, and I thank all the partners that were involved but having that physical hub, that point of contact, was very crucial for a very active COVID response. So then we go on to the hub and spoke model. Okay. And the hub and spoke model, I'm not going to explain it, all of you know what it is. We have the primary hub, which is the corner, And then very luckily now we have a secondary hub, which is a share and reuse space, but which is focused a lot on social well-being. So both these hubs really function from the health access model, where there is a common intake, people are connected to services, and it is a seamless space for community and service providers to come together. And apart from this, we also have rotating sites, and that's why it's called the hub and spoke model. But beyond the rotating sites, we also refer to organizations that are beyond the health access partner organizations. Hand it over to Chris for the next.
Thank you. So further to reinforce the inclusivity and our collective identity is our hub mantra, which is, it's a space that belongs to everybody, but yet is owned by nobody. And, together with community and service providers, we provide programs and supports to support the inclusivity, of the whole community. And some examples of celebration of diversity are the Asian Heritage Month, Black History Month, etc. Okay, so in terms of the hub access model, this focus now is on community driven. As you can see, we do a lot of community engagement. And they're an active partner of the model, so that we always take into consideration their perspectives to reinforce health and well-being initiatives. And this is showing you some of the governance at the corner. So we have various working groups. We have the Residents Council. And then most of you heard that throughout the pandemic, there was the Community Ambassador Program that became extremely active. And they were very hands-on in terms of going into the community and outreaching their peers to participate in health and wellness initiatives while different places or organizations were closed due to, public health regulations. But it kept our pulse on the community at all times because of this approach. So these are some of the forums in terms of being able to reach out to the community. Every spring we have the spring gathering where the community attends, and then every fall we have the St. Jamestown Festival. And everything is done in co-design with, the community residents, the service providers, consultants, various celebrations. And it also holds us accountable to the community because they know what they've shared, and then they want to make sure that there's follow-up. And so that we report back at the various forums. Okay. So further examples, in terms of the health and well-being initiatives, the need-based response during the pandemic obviously was all about testing and ensuring that we had food security, as was mentioned previously, and wellness checks. The outreach and education informed us of all, the needs. That's where we, developed flu vaccine clinics and COVID shots, cancer screening. And of course, ensuring that newcomers that were here had the needed resources at the same time. And even though there were such turbulent times, we were able to focus on career pathways for ambassadors and volunteers by having the program where they would go into the community and do the outreach. And there were nurse practitioner-led clinics to help with the health and wellness as well. So our journey, so it started way back in 2013. This is the health access table. We received, as again, I mentioned that we started the pilot with no resources, but we all came together with the identified need, and we're very committed to seeing it through. Then eventually, a year later, we received one-time funding, and then the next following year, it became permanent funding. And as the years went on, the impact and the outcomes were really proven, so we were able to continue to apply for funding.
Thanks, Chris. I'm going to talk about our impact. But before that, I also just wanted to say that how crucial community ambassadors have been in all of the work we do. And many of you might know, but some of you might not. The Community Ambassador Program was initiated in St. Jamestown in 2013. And ever since community ambassadors have been an integral part of all service consultations. And it was, they were also the main reason that community consultations became an annual event, right? Instead of organizations going in for need assessments and all of that, when probably a proposal was due, this was an ongoing commitment that we made to the community. Right? And the community ambassadors and other community leaders sat with service providers to design these community consultations. And every time at the spring gathering, we report back, right? So it's not just asking people, oh, so how's it going? What are your needs? We report back, this is what we heard, and this is where we are, right? And we also encourage the community, and community participates in a number of initiatives. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that. So moving on to our impact, so this is our service impact in a year. This is with no additional resources except the core funding for health access, but this has been possible because multiple organizations are involved. And here I'm only talking about new clients in a lot of cases. We are not considering all the follow-ups that happens, because then the numbers will be multifold. So then, and it's just kind of to show you what the funder-driven targets are and where we are at with all of these targets, right? So I'm just not going to go into it. Primary care new clients, around 115 were attached to care through the health access model, which also includes the NP-led clinic. But there were many follow-ups as well, similarly with settlement. And Chris spoke about the wonderful seniors program, and these were the units of service that they were able to provide in a year. So that is our service impact. So what is our system impact? So Health Access St. Jamestown, just given the success of this model, now has expanded. The Ontario Health has provided funding for it to be expanded to Moss Park and other neighborhoods in the downtown east. So that's where we are at. The model is recognized both as a preventive model and to promote well-being, as well as an intervention model. So when the model started off, the focus was only on the high-need clients, right? But then it became very clear that an upstream mechanism is needed to reduce the number of people who become high need, right? So that was integrated into the model, and both social determinants of health and, the traditional healthcare became very integral to the model. Now, as a result of how this model has come about, OH has also funded similar health access models in Western Mount Dennis, Thorncliffe Park, and Taylor Massey. It's been showcased several times by the TC Lynn and Ontario Health, and we're very, very, grateful for the support that we've got over the years for this model. And like I said, the ambassador program was pioneered here. Just before COVID, the city came for a visit to look at our model and to learn from our model. And then when COVID hit, it was rolled out, as you know, across the city. So I've talked about, our service impact. I've talked about our system impact, but there is a greater impact. And that is the paradigm shift that has happened with how we work in a neighborhood. So really what has happened is, when something starts, we are always, okay, so the funder says we need to be doing this, these are your targets, but very quickly, the effect of the leadership table, the frontline table, the community driving, action, it moved us beyond funder-driven initiatives and targets. I might even call this a movement in terms of how we look at working in the community. So service providers, irrespective of whether they are funded through health access or not, recognize the value of working within this model structure. And so many initiatives that have been funded externally to the model have now been integrated or connect with the model, connect with the governance table to kind of, make sure that the initiative that they have funded for reaches everybody. A very, very strong example is the COVID response. Health access was not directly funded for the COVID response, but the level of support that the health access table and the corner provided is just testament to the fact that this model survives beyond all, funder-driven initiatives, and it is truly, truly neighborhood-based. And now we have this wonderful hub. If you've not visited the corner at 240, I strongly encourage you to visit the corner at 240, the Share and Reuse Hub. And like I said, co-design and resident engagement is integral to everything that we do. And as Chris had mentioned, accountability. So we have a common database. We report on the data on all our websites. It's available publicly. We report at Spring Gathering. So, and if we are not doing well internally, we connect with our table to see, okay, how can we do better? So there is and we share our reports widely to all the city tables, the Spring Gathering consultation reports. So we hold ourselves truly, really accountable. And I think that's also, it is a function of all of the leadership that is here that has allowed us to move in this direction. And so thank you very much for that. And thank you very much to all the residents who contributed immensely to the success of this model. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Nolini and Chris, the community leader, for your very beautiful, insightful presentation. Both of you did the journey from the beginning to today, and this is very important to know the past to move forward in the future, in the present. So thank you very much. And I also mention one word Chris has said, that no matter who is supporting the community, as soon as resident and community members are supported, that's our goal. So thank you for the words. Now we will have our breakout discussion. For our first breakout discussion, we ask you to think about places in the St. Jamestown neighborhood of connectivity, joy, and healing. We want to start from places of connectivity, joy, and healing in order to center community networks and intentionally engage these networks while building collaborations. You will notice at your table resources to help guide this discussion, including the St. Jamestown Social Charter, which outlines key St. Jamestown neighborhood priorities. We have created some of the breakout groups for convenience. When thinking about key places of connections, healing, and joy, if you want to focus on youth, you can join Serena's group. Serena, Serena. So can you stand, please? So this is Serena's group. So you can join Serena's table if you want to focus on youth. And if you want to focus on food security places, please join Khalid's group. Khalid, so this is Khalid's group. This is Serena. And if you want to focus on seniors, please join Orit's group. Orit, this is Orit. So I would like to request you to relocate yourself as your focus. And the rest of the groups can decide together which priorities and communities can best be supported at the sites people identify. Please note, your group will be asked to share 2 main discussion points during the report back section. For people who are joining online, you should see a pop-up that will direct you to join a Zoom breakout group. If you need help, please let people know in the Zoom chat box. Thank you all. Enjoy rest of the activities and day. Thank you.
I can get it working. And I'm from Hospice Toronto. I'm the CEO at Hospice Toronto.
Okay, thanks, Tina.
And yourself?
So I'm Yvonne. I'm with Medallion. We're the largest landlord in St. Jamestown.
Oh, okay. I'm interested.
I'm just going to start off our conversation. My name is Christina, and I will be one of the facilitators for this conversation. I am a BSW student at Fred Victor, and I use she, her pronouns.
So, hi everybody, my name is William. I'm an MSW student. I'm doing a placement at Fred Victor as well, and I use he, him pronouns.
Hello, Fred Victor staff. I am Droz Adurian. I'm the manager of St. Jamestown Outreach Program with Fred Victor Center.
Nice. All right. So I guess we can get started. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to share in the chat the social charter as well, because I think that was sort of our reference material for this first breakout discussion here. So if you give me 1 second here, I can share that document in here and we can get started.
Awesome.
So, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I just said awesome. I got it.
Okay, great. So should I share my screen with the slides for
Yeah.
this? Okay, let me do that here. Great. Can people see this now on the screen share?
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Perfect. All right. So I think we can probably dive in because we only have about half an hour and it might be a little bit reduced because we started a bit late. But welcome. And just so you all know that the breakout rooms are as well recorded, including the chat. They will be making note of that as well. So for this discussion, we are going to be using asset mapping as an exercise to identify places in St. Jamestown neighborhood that can be activated to address the priorities in St. Jamestown social charter, whether that is issue-based, such as diversity and inclusion, or population-based, such as youths or seniors. And then since we already went through the introductions, we don't really have to do that anymore. So I think it's fair that we can move into our first question, which you can see right there on the screen. It is, where in the St. Jamestown neighborhood exists places of connection, joy, and healing? And we ask that you can answer this question independently at first, so you can reflect on it and think about it on your own for about 2 minutes, and then we'll come back and share.
Hi, Miss Joe, I'm back.
So it looks like we are combining with the other group. So just for everyone that's joining, we're just reflecting on the first question independently right now. Perfect. So I feel like that's been about 2 to 3 minutes. So now we can kind of just go around the room and start sharing what we kind of came up with whenever you're ready.
Do you want us to say all of our suggestions or just kind of one at a time?
Totally up to you. I guess depending on how many you have.
So I've got the corner. I have the parks and outdoor spaces, the community center. Inside our building at 561 Sherburne Street, there's 3 community spaces in the basement. Progress Place uses the largest one for their seniors program. And then we have the Children's Book Bank that uses the smaller space for their reading program. We also have a large outdoor podium space that the book bank and our tenants use. It's got barbecues, beautiful gardens, just different areas, whether you want to be around people or not around people. So yeah, I know people have gotten some like joy there, but also connections with other residents and people in the neighborhood. And then I was also thinking about like the restaurants and the stores in the neighborhood, like even the barbecue place at the top of Howard and Bleecker. The summertime, it's always a gathering place there. And then obviously churches, even the cemetery. We have a lot of our residents at the Rose Park property that love walking through the cemetery, especially in the fall, just enjoying the colors and everything that are there. And the new outdoor space at the Tridel property with the white tables and chairs. I know a lot of the community residents have been enjoying that too, just being able to sit there and watch traffic and passerbys.
Awesome. Those are some really great ideas and suggestions and places. And then if you are just joining and you are speaking for the first time, feel free to introduce yourself, because we already kind of did that when we first got together. Did anyone else have any suggestions, or if they agreed with some of the places that were mentioned?
Hi, Christina. Hi, everyone. I just have just one suggestion. Sorry, my name is Lamin. Pronouns are he, him, and his. So Yvonne just mentioned about church, but what I wanted to point out is maybe a multi-feed facilities. Because I know St. Jamestown is it's a diverse community, so you have people of all faiths that I guess are living there. So just only having church and not, let's say, mosque or synagogue or something. How do you see that? So maybe that's something that one should also consider very well. Because I guess this will attract people too, right?
Yeah, of course.
That's a good point, Lamine. The Trinity Common, I'm not sure if that space is available anymore, but it was run by one of the so it was the New Common, but it was run by one of the churches that was just across the street from 200 Wellesley. I think they're at least maybe up on that space, but yeah, we have had that kind of engagement before. I just don't think it's something that we have at the moment, so that could be worth exploring.
Because I remember one time, I was just flying from Toronto Airport here, going to England. So I came across a multi-faith prayer room, like Muslims, Christians, and anybody can go there and pray. And then I overheard a passenger who was a Muslim, and at the moment he realized that I can do my prayer here before my flight takes off, he was so happy. He said, "Oh, I feel a sense of belonging." So some of these things people tend to overlook them, but they can mean a lot.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so
thank you for sharing.
One observation.
Were there any other places that anyone identified? No problem. Well, now I think we can move on to the second part of that first question. It'll just be on the second slide here, William. And we just want to kind of cross-purpose this now with some of the either objectives or the different populations that we come in contact with. So whether, like I mentioned earlier, youth, seniors, BIPOC communities, things like that. So we want to think about which of these places a project can be located to either satisfy a social charter objective or to support a population group, given the existing relationships that are already there. And then the goal of this is we want to kind of decide on a particular site and a place to focus the rest of our questions on.
Do you think it's possible we could just get the places that were listed repeated back to us from like the answers to the first question?
I wrote them down so I can read them out if you like.
Thank you.
So I had the corner, parks and outdoor space, the community center, and then we have the 2 community rooms in the basement of 561 Sherburne. So one is for like it's being occupied by Progress Place for their seniors program. And then the children's book bank is in the small space. Restaurants and stores, the churches, the cemetery. And then I guess based on the buildings, like our buildings have amenity spaces and the outdoor podium. And then just even like benches in the neighborhood, such as the one at the new Tridel property. I think they've got benches and tables there.
Great, thank you.
Now, in like thinking about all of those places that we have, can a project be located in order to satisfy one or more of the St. Jamestown Social Charter objectives in any of those spaces? Or which of these places would best meet needs that your organization serves in terms of its population?
Just for me, you know, obviously, like we're a landlord. So for us, with regards to, you know, our communities, it's basically our tenants and our residents, right? That we're serving. So for us, the spaces we're able to provide at our properties, both indoor and outdoor, you know, are the only things that I could think of that would best meet the needs of our tenants and residents. But then it also frees up what is available or needed for our occupants to use in the community, right? So people who can't access our spaces in our buildings, at least it allows meeting spaces and, you know, fitness facilities and stuff, even at the community center, to be available for people who don't have those spaces within their own buildings, right?
Great points, thank you. And just for the sake of time, I might call on a few people just so we can have a bit of more diverse perspectives. Dro, did you have anything you wanted to add maybe? We're just trying to look at finding a particular site where we can kind of dive a little bit deeper into.
Is there a particular project in mind at all? Because I'm just thinking that might help, like if we know a priority for a project. then it might be easier to figure out where in the neighborhood it might be best served.
That's a good question. I'm almost even wondering about like crisis response, for example. Thinking back to the fire at 650 Parliament, 200 Wellesley, I mean, what doors needed to open up in a situation like that in order for people to be supported?
Yeah, because even the fire at 200 Wellesley, right? The community center became like a huge hub there. Even just for being able to like shower and like hygiene, right? Like I know they were asking for donations of like towels and like bathroom products. So I remember, you know, being at the community center quite a lot during that time, trying to support everybody there. Is there an update on the spaces that are being renovated in TCHC? Because I think there was some community space there as well to help with even crisis response.
The only space that's being renovated currently is the basement at 200 Wellesley, and that's kind of being prepared for a centralized food security hub, which, if you remember, that was the table that we were part of. That was one of the outcomes of that. So the entrance will be through 200 Wellesley. So we're just waiting for the building of it to be completed, and then a call for you know, like an RFP will be sent out for people to apply, which at that point I think there will be like a joint application for you know, managing the sites, you know, staffing it, doing the data collection, doing the outreach, and all that.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's in progress. That's a big thing. Not sure the timing of it yet at this point.
Okay.
So, I mean, even with that as an example, if there was a site where a food security program could be run out of, what would that look like? Or I'm just curious if everyone has any ideas on what that would need in order to be sustainable and effective to address the needs of the community. I don't know, Joe or Sadia, if you've got any thoughts on that as well. But things are you seeing in your programs and organizations that are lacking, and how could those be addressed by having a centralized location, for example? Any thoughts on that?
Sorry, if I'm not mistaken, well, the previous office we had at 325, when TCHC took it back from us, one of the things that they mentioned was they had in mind to run a food security program there, if I'm not mistaken. That's what they kind of talked about. And at that time, we were thinking maybe that could help our clientele to, you know, use some sort of those who are needing, who are elderly and who are needing food. Maybe it could provide some sort of essential items based on the, things that are like eggs, like bread, like things that are essential for clients, and that could be reached out by clients, and maybe there could be some sort of referral from agencies for those clients who qualify for those services. But this discussion is very vague, and I don't know if we can come up with an answer on this table. I mean, I don't have too much ideas at this moment. Maybe moving forward, I can kind of have more. But I would add to the resources also the library that is there in St. Jamestown. And based on the capacity that we use services, I'm thinking if the weather permits, outdoor activities are the best for that community.
Just for everyone's knowledge, Joe, who does your program support?
Yeah, so we work with seniors, basically. It's a geriatric mental health program, and we work with seniors 55 plus. Currently, we have 2-3 programs with some of the Fred Victor transitional housing programs. One is with Health Access, and the one that was the base program we started was St. Jamestown Outreach Program. So we have 2 collaboration and 1 main geriatric mental health and addiction case management program.
And where do you operate out of in St. Jamestown? Because you did have an office there, correct? But
we don't have an office anymore. So Rob, this was, if you remember, we had a discussion at that time, and so TCHC took the office from us, saying that they would give us another one because they needed that space for some sort of family programs, food security programs, and whatsoever. But 2 other offices that they offered actually were not safe. They didn't pass the safety and risk assessment, forms that we have, and the policy that we have in Fred Victor. They didn't pass those because they were mainly either in basements or very, very small offices with 1 exit, so they didn't pass we didn't come to an agreement for those places. And then there was a big gap afterwards. We needed to take care of the items that were in the lockers at 325, so we donated some of them, and we gave away. Basically, we came back and we are now located at 800 Bay. Staff use the corner space if they need to, but in general, we don't have any current location in St. Jamestown.
Is it possible to flip to the next slide? So let's use this as an example then. So for support for older adults, what resources from where you sit currently exist, or what is needed in order to make that possible? Where are the gaps currently?
Okay.
And Yvonne, feel free to chime in on this as well if you've got any experience with that.
Just for everyone's knowledge, I am the recent manager of the program. Within this 1 year that I'm working with STOP program, I have realized that most of our clients are in need of basically food, some items, some like health items that could help in their daily living activities, eyeglasses, dentures, and these are the things that we have some sort of resources. We tap into them, but actually, I feel that it's not sufficient. I feel that it would be good if we could have more. The tax clinic, like if there could be a variety of locations and some sort of, not only one or two, if there could be some possibilities, and with older adults, I would say still we are, because this is an intensive short-term case management, most of the issue comes to long-term case management and taking care of, the continuity of the service. So that continuity of care sometimes becomes a challenge for us on our discharge planning, because whatever we do and we make the client somewhat independent, after being graduated, they don't go and tap into those resources back. They don't go back into those, locations or connections that we made, and somebody needs to be there for them. Somebody needs to be always supporting these people. But we don't have that resource to provide a long-term case management or so.
Would a buddy system of any sort help?
Sorry?
Would a buddy system of any sort help?
Well, you mean any organization that could provide short-term? Is that what you mean, short-term? Could you be more specific what you mean with buddy system?
So a couple things, because I know out of the corner, like they have community volunteers. Even during COVID, they would just go and knock on people's doors or call them and make sure, that they were doing well. So depending on what the needs are, if we were able to connect them with somebody, whether it's in their building or through the corner, that could follow up with them, to see what their needs are. Like I'm even thinking too, for our seniors, I know transportation is a bit of an issue for trying to get to their appointments, especially those that have mobility issues. But
Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for these exciting conversations. We're going to end this exercise and we're going to move into the next portion of today, which will be a report back. So we do have a virtual hybrid meeting, so we're going to actually invite folks who are online to give their report back. And I believe they have one breakout group there. And we've asked everyone to keep their report backs pretty short. So if you can identify someone to give your report back and ask them, they can choose maybe two or 3 points you'd like to share. And I'll stop talking and pass it off to Rob Johannes. Thank you so much, Rob.
Thanks, Anna Teresa. Hi, everyone. Rob Johannes, he, him, and his, co-chair of the SPN for many years now. Good to see you all over there on site. I wanted to actually pass it over to Sandesh, who's been taking notes from the online discussion, just to present 1 or 2 of the key points that were discussed over here. Feel free to unmute yourself. Sandesh.
There you go.
Hi, didn't realize I was mad. Okay, cool. So we discuss about the places where this charter can be projected, right? Like the places like the corner or the multi-community center and other spaces at the 561 Sherburne. And at the same time, we also discuss about the resources that are currently existing and what might be needed in the future. And Drew highlighted about the short-term case management we're doing, but also at the same time, there is the necessity of long-term case management for the high-need clients that are residing in St. James Town areas. Those are the points I quickly summarize. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks, Sandesh. I'll pass it back to you, Anna Teresa, on site to call upon some of the groups in person.
McDonald with the neighborhood group. Good morning, everybody. So we're just going to ask in the room here for everybody to report back. Again, just 1 or 2 things, 1 to 2 minutes. And so I'll start with our group here. We seem to settle on the idea that youth need some more supports in the St. Jamestown area. While there are programs that exist, there's always more that can be done, and it's a challenge to engage youth. One thing that came up in terms of a place that maybe we could explore is working with Jarvis Collegiate, because they apparently have support staff and space that we could potentially leverage. So we have somebody here at the table that we're hoping to connect with afterwards, or help us liaise with those folks. And the other thing that came up connected to youth is intergenerational activities. So the supports for seniors. So wouldn't it be great if we could leverage, those youth that we do engage with, and have them be able to give back after they, of course, feel supported with other important issues, but to connect them with seniors. And one of the themes that came up that could be addressed in this project would be grief and loss, because that seems to be something that penetrates all populations that we don't always acknowledge. So yeah, I think that was, for the most part, it. So I'm going to pass it over to this table. Who would like to?
Hi there. Thank you. My name is Deborah Williams. I'm your TDSB School Board Trustee for University Rosedale and Toronto Centre. So we had a wonderful discussion at this table. A lot of agencies represented here. Dixon Hall, can't remember them all. Dixon Hall sticks in my mind. Regent Park Community Center, TNG, A-Way Courier, which we have at work. I recommend them to everyone. So, I think our focus here was youth. And the discussion, really identified the opportunities for collaboration of the agencies to map out the opportunities to support youth and identify the gaps. Having a youth employment strategy came up, which was very important. And that also kind of coincides with the mapping out of opportunities and gaps. Youth mental health. I think mental health is, a very important issue that it's being raised in many quarters, and especially for our youth. Food security. I mentioned here about the federal government's promise and allotment of funds for a national nutrition program, which hasn't come to fruition yet. So that's an opportunity, for advocacy as well. And I know the agencies and organizations here are doing the work on the ground around food security now, as we wait for the national food nutrition program for our youth. Youth mentorship, that came up as an important topic as well. And, I believe it was mentioned that the person who brought this forward, not just for now, like with view of life support. Mentorship in a youth's life can be, a very impactful, not just impactful now in the present, but have a lifelong impact. So those were the points. Am I missing anything, my colleagues at the table? Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to try not to block people. I'm Tori Merritt. I'm from Unity Health. I'm going to try and represent our conversation. So we're talking broadly about all populations, but in the end kind of zeroed in on seniors and talking a lot about how we talked a lot about great spaces. A lot of outdoor spaces came into play in terms of where people found healing. But in relation to seniors, there's a lot of talk about how we actually still need to reach out to folks because they are not necessarily coming to groups, et cetera. And so thinking more about taking services or providing services in a different way and really having to invest in that. And then the other thing that came up in our conversation is that there's an amazing collaboration, through everyone here, but there are still organizations that are a stone throw away that we could bring more into the fold. And so making a conscious effort, we talked about the co-op, like the book donation, the community matters, and how can we bring more organizations into the fold of this group? Did I miss anything? Okay. All right, that's about it. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michaela. Our group's focus was also on seniors, and we talked about the traditional spaces of like a community center, such as the Wellesley Community Group and other untraditional spaces like courtyards and natural gathering places for people. But we also really looked at where do seniors feel safe or where do they not feel safe. And so we talked about issues of, why seniors may not feel safe when it comes to accessing services, such as a language barrier, lack of financial resources. And, sometimes people really need to have a peer, and these are people that they trust to be able to access these services. Another, issues of safety, again, and trust, and breaking down these barriers so that seniors are able to access the services that are in their community. And then we really looked at, how can we start this healing for our community in terms of how can seniors start accessing these services or learning more about what's available to them. These are things where, there is a lack of availability or things are offered in a 9-to-5 basis. So how do seniors access, crisis support? And, the issue of just not having this information available and how to do that outreach so that these services are more well known to the community. Is there anything else? Does anyone like to add? Okay. Yeah.
I think last but not least, our table here. Is it Vienna? Vesna.
Hi, I'm Vesna from Fred Victor. So our table was, we talked about food security. So we talked about, a couple of things. There's obviously access to food, but there's something beyond that. There is an environment to enjoy food with others, where connection, joy, and healing is promoted, supported, and experienced. And sometimes those two things in food security are divorced from each other. And there's a moral and ethical responsibility to move away from charity model towards more integrated model where nourishment is experienced. So how can we tackle this problem collectively is one of the questions we are asking the group. There are some, we've done some resource mapping. We have a friend here from the food security, Canadian Food Center of Canada that is coming up in 2025. There's a food table with the city, food hub, investment of $1 million that is coming down the pipe. There's currently in the Community Freedom City on Ontario Street, 275 Bleecker, that is receiving donations from Daily Bread Bank. And we're sure there's more pockets. There's one event that has been highlighted is Taste of Regent Park, every Wednesday, July to September, where the food is prepared having in mind diversity of people in the community. Meals are shared, but there's also educational components where people can actually receive information about employment, get information about resources and community agencies that operate in the community. And lastly, there may be an opportunity to partner with private sector and produce outcomes that and show outcomes that actually show that people's mental health and mental health status, behaviors in general, are heavily affected by the quality of food. To us, that seems rather common sense, but it needs to be data-driven for us to gain resources and share with the community. And yeah, and then finally, there's a teaching component, because when people live in poverty for too long, they don't know what to do with resources and how they feed themselves properly. So if we can, address those needs as well through some of our programs. So that's us.
Thank you, everybody. We are now going to take a 10-minute break. Get up, have some coffee, have some food, get some fresh air, get some sunshine, and we'll call you back in 10 minutes. Exit to your left for the washrooms. And samosas at the front.
Hi, Linda. How are you? I'm doing well. Thank you. Yeah.
And finish up your last bites. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. So we're going to get started again for our second and final discussion group. And the theme of this second discussion group is community wealth building strategies. Okay, so community wealth building strategies are ways in which community-driven entities can use their everyday business practices to decrease the health and wealth disparities amongst vulnerable community members. This is not a new concept. Community-driven organizations have been implementing them for a long time now. Today, you will have the option of discussing one of the following community wealth building strategies. So one being local and equitable hiring, the second being local purchasing, and the third being place-based investing. We hope this section of the forum will encourage organizations to learn how other organizations are implementing these wealth building strategies, and we hope that the discussion might spark future collaborations that can build scale and set strong neighborhood-wide targets. So in order to, a real life example of this will be described by Arvind from the corner to briefly introduce the work the corner does with regard to local and equitable hiring. So I believe he is just finishing up something right now.
Thank you
So
so
Anna,
much,
I'll give it to you.
Veronica. I'll take it off and then I'll actually pass off to Arvind afterwards. My name is Ana Teresa. I'm a part of the TNO team at the corner. Before this, I actually worked with the Parkdale People's Economy, which is located in South Parkdale. And I just wanted to share a little story about what we did there around place-based investing. So in 2017, the Parkdale People's Economy convened for the first time what they called an anchor strategy table. And this anchor table actually brought together health networks in the neighborhood, so the major health institutions. One of them was University Health Network. At that time, University Health Network had applied for a redevelopment of their long-term care facility. They also owned 13 residential properties in South Parkdale. So they had been a part of this table, the Anchor Roundtable, for about 3 years at this point. And at the Anchor Roundtable, we discussed with all the health institutions community wealth building strategies, local equitable hiring, place-based investing, and local purchasing. After these 3 years, because of the conversations we had, we were able to inspire a shift, a conceptual shift in how UHN envisioned their properties. Originally, they saw them speculatively meaning they were a real estate asset, right, in which they could use as an investment. After they joined the table and talked to other like-minded community-driven agencies or organizations, they shifted completely. They actually now include all 13 residential properties in a new partnerships that they formed with the City of Toronto and United Way. This partnership was called the Social Medicine Initiative. The Social Medicine Initiative was passed in 2020, and I'm so proud to say because of the work that community did, because of this type of meeting, bringing service providers together, really shifting the way we think about the local economy. I'm really proud to say that that Social Medicine Initiative, it has already started construction on 100 modular units in South Parkdale. The 13 residential properties are also going to be redeveloped as 100% supportive housing for UHN clients that are leaving houselessness. So this is a huge, huge win for the community, but it's also a huge win for us in terms of how we think about the economy. How do we approach the economy? What we're going to be doing for this next section is really focusing on one out of these 3 discussions, really thinking about how do we take our everyday business practices and make sure money isn't being extracted from our communities, but actually comes back into the community. So I'm now going to invite Arvind. I hope Arvind's here. He's going to talk a little bit about local and equitable hiring.
Hello, everyone. My name is Arvind. I'm a resident of St. James Town and I work at the corner. Just a few numbers and just to talk about local hiring and how the corner and the SPN has been involved in it. So the corner does not have a equitable and local and equitable hiring policy in place. However, I am proud to say that of our existing 30 staff, 19 of them are from St. James Town or the neighboring areas, which is about 63% of the staff. And another 8 of them have started with us as volunteers or placement students. So we can say that about 90% of our staff have some kind of connection with St. Jamestown, the Corner, or the service providers network. The Corner has been able to achieve this through a strong community engagement and volunteer outreach practices that are enabled our team to create hiring pathways for residents. Since its inception, the countless number of volunteers and ambassadors have found career pathways within the Corner and other unserviced partners within the network. The most important thing is not just to create entry-level positions for local and equitable hires, but also to create the internal infrastructure required for them to move up in those institutions. In 2020-23, $243,000 were pumped back into the community through various employment opportunities. And this year, we are averaging about $25,000 every month. I would now like to invite Catherine Roos to introduce herself and speak a little bit about local purchasing.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Anna Teresa and Arvind. Nice to be here. So A-Way Express is not an ordinary courier company. We've been funded by the Ministry of Health since 1987. And we're funded specifically to provide employment for people with serious mental health challenges. And we really have a double-sided business model. The small business community thinks we're just a courier company, but we're really providing wraparound supports like a community mental health agency. So why would the Ministry of Health fund a courier business? It's because we're providing social determinants of health. And there's been lots of clinical research that proves that when you improve income, housing, food security, stuff we're all talking about here today, that health outcomes are improved. And so that's what A-Way's in the business of doing that. And so that's sort of the social side of our business model. The population that we serve generally experiences unemployment rates of 70 to 90%. And so why is it they can't find jobs? We've successfully employed this population for 37 years. So there's a lot of learning to be done, and there's some gaps to be filled. But I'm supposed to be here to talk about purchasing power. So A-Way delivers more than 17,000 packages a year. And every single one of those deliveries is making an impact on somebody's life, helping to ultimately improve their health, improve income, housing, and food security. And every person who places one of those orders is actually using their purchasing power to contribute to those jobs. I did some back of the napkin calculations just as a silly exercise at one point for a conversation with Anna Teresa. Anywhere between 700 and 1,000 deliveries makes a job. The average business improvement area in Toronto has about 800 businesses. So we're not talking about a lot of change here. We're potentially talking about each business in a business improvement area choosing to make one delivery with A-Way Express and create one local job. And if you had a couple of direct marketing companies mixed in there, or companies with multiple locations that needed to, transport product samples, or they're, at holiday season, they're doing customer deliveries to their homes or things like that. Can you imagine the number of jobs that we can create? So businesses and not-for-profit organizations, anybody here, has a lot of purchasing power. And that purchasing power doesn't have to be millions of dollars. It can be very, very simple, small little actions, like making the choice to hire a social impact organization to make that delivery. So this is the kind of thing that we're talking about here today, about the small changes that can add up to some really big impacts in our community. I think that's it.
Thank you. Really, really powerful mini presentations. Okay, so we're going to go into our group discussions. Because we're a little bit short on time, we're actually going to have a choice of one out of the three. So you have 3 sets of questions that your facilitators has with them, and your group can do a bit of democracy or show of hand to see which topic you want to focus on. There's 3: local equitable hiring, local purchasing, and place-based investing. And we will be closing, we'll finish this about 11:45. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm just going to share my screen that has the slide for the breakout discussion, or our second breakout discussions. So I'm not sure if anybody felt very strongly about which of the three questions we want to answer. I think maybe we were feeling like we would start with the first one, the local and equitable hiring, unless people had strong feelings about beginning with a different question. All right. Then, why don't we get started then with the first? So I can read out just the questions for the first discussion here. So, so the questions to start for this for the second discussion were, what are your pressing human resource needs? And everyone can see the screen share here too. Like, feel free, we don't have to follow these questions in order. Like, if there's something that you want to speak to, we can kind of just let the conversation develop from there.
I can speak to this from our program perspective. And I don't have good news is here. One of our staff left the program, and since then we haven't been able to hire someone for that position. We went through 3 phases of hiring, and every time, well, the first time we came up with 2 great candidates. One of them was a Fred Victor student, the other one was a Reconnect worker, very good assets, very huge assets, but some stuff came up, personal issues, and they couldn't take the position. Second time, I tried hiring from newcomer communities and those internationally trained professionals who come to Canada. And basically, we went through some phases of hiring again. There were some people coming from Loft organization. And again, we went up until providing offer letters to these people. They pulled back. We couldn't complete the hiring process. And the concerns from, those internationally trained professionals were to, well, basically, first of all, they asked if this was face-to-face meeting people in encampments, and, some concerns about health and safety issues and whatsoever. When we cleared that we had a very strong health and safety policy with Fred Victor. So basically, they continued by saying, we want to still have a think about it. We gave us some grace period to think about it. They came back. Again, they denied the offer letters by saying they wanted to pursue their career and education. Like they had medical backgrounds from back home, which could be a huge asset for us for this neighborhood. They pulled back, and sadly, we couldn't proceed with that too. The other person from Loft had some personal issues, family issues, went on a long-term leave with Loft and said that he couldn't accept this position with Fred Victor. So we have posted again. We are still looking for some people. We hired one contract position from a racialized background, living close to that area, not very close, but basically, again, like Danforth location, close to Don Valley. So it's really challenging. It's really challenging. We see a lot of staff turnover. And I want to be open with this. Most of the situation comes to the salary. People would be able to pursue this job, would be able to accept the position based on my understanding, or staff wouldn't leave the program at least if there was equitable salary in place. So we see programs with the city. I am participating in some of these, poverty reduction strategies or whatsoever. And when I see the salaries that city provides to their staff, it's at least $10 more than nonprofit agencies provide. So, and $10 per hour means a lot. When people get in touch with, TCHC workers, and they learn about the salary that TCHC provides, and they compare with the salary they receive with nonprofit agencies, well, believe me, at some point they're going to think about applying for those positions and getting a job with a higher pay. So when it comes to delivering services to clients, we need to understand most of the job and the hardest part of the job is done by our community service workers. We need to appreciate that. We need to understand them. We need to think about these people because they have families. Some of them are the only workers, the sole workers of the family. So we need to respect equitable living prices with, the amount of, people that they serve in this community, the complicated issues that they face every day. This salary, is nothing. After taking out the taxes and deductions, it comes even less than $20 per hour, which is a sad story, So I, as a manager, am trying to pursue equitable hiring. I want to have people from diverse communities. I want to have people who can speak different languages so that we can cover this, catchment area. We can provide services based on their languages, because I have seen that people cannot speak fluently in English and they need someone that understands their language. So, but sadly, we don't have that much diverse language spectrum. So we are trying to hire people from, different communities so that they can serve with the primary language. The challenges that we faced during COVID is tremendous, because with senior population, they are having challenges to see workers face to face. If previously we could arrange easily to meet people in the community, or in their housing. Nowadays, it's very challenging to go to people's location, to do home visits, because they are very reluctant to have people in their places. I don't know how many of these questions were addressed or how many are left out.
I feel like you answered all of them, Joe.
Yeah.
I'm just looking back to see what's, yeah. So the hiring externally, yeah. So actually we, based on our collective agreement, we had this discussion, and all of our postings goes internal, external, hiring. So everyone can apply. We are open to any kind of background coming to our program, as I said, and we will be happy to have diverse team. That's it.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Have any type of like employment resource, like even for postings, if there were available employment opportunities in the neighborhood? Does the corner have somewhere that those could be posted?
Well, our postings go online, and basically you can find it on Indeed, on our website, everywhere. I mean, I had people applying and telling me that they found the postings from online portals. And well, we also send internally to some of our partner agencies. I mean, we share those with them. Yeah, and I want to say that this is not only with us, and it's not only, our program. We see this largely, vastly amongst most of nonprofit organizations. People are, whatever is now called job hopping, it's not actually job hopping, because people are trying to survive, are trying to find the best match based on the, salary. It's not that they don't have a goal, educational goal or career goal or whatsoever. They have a goal, but daily livings come, 10% increase on everything, all of the cost of living increases, but then you have 1 to 3% increase on salary, and that sucks actually. Excuse my language, but that's the reality.
Yeah, that I agree with you, Joe. That really does suck, and we're feeling it across the sector entirely. Just to answer your question, Yvonne, Joe's talking about the St. Jamestown Outreach Program with Fred Victor. With respect to the corner, I can't really answer that. I'm not sure, because I work at Fred Victor as well. I'd be curious though, are there channels through which these things could be spread out? I mean, even through your networks, through Medallion and such?
Well, so I'm saying, like, even for us, I know some of our cleaning staff in the buildings, even though they're not employed by Medallion, they're employed by our cleaning contractor. We do have residents who, are, working as cleaners in our buildings, for example, that live at 650. So they are people from the community, that are being employed. But I was just wondering if there were openings, like even at like local stores or other companies, is there a way of like communicating that even to the corner that there is this opening and people could apply for it? Because we also hire like internal and external. Most of my staff are long-term staff. I don't have a high staff turnover, thankfully, like at the buildings. You know, I have supers that have been with us 35 plus years. I've got administrators that have been with us almost just as long. So thankfully, we don't have a high turnover in those positions. One of our sites are union and one of them is not. So I know wage-wise as well, you know, they're probably making more than others that would be working in the neighborhood. But I also know COVID-19, like just within our company period, you know, employee burnout was huge. Obviously too, just trying to cover for people like being off who did get COVID. And then just the demands. I think that even just employees put on themselves, right? We try to not promote working outside of, you know, business hours, but there are people who still feel like it's necessary, right? And salaries as well. Like we had the same challenges with regards to people leaving and chasing, you know, higher salaries and positions that you used to hire at 40 or 50, you know, thousand. Suddenly now we're being hired out at 60, 70,000. So even already budgets are going like out of line. They seem to be coming back down now, even with inflation and so on. But our industry as a whole just basically had to kind of change it, that you're hiring for attitude and just hoping for aptitude, right?
Hiring for attitude, hoping for aptitude. I love that. Let's make sure that's documented.
It's paid off though. And it really is, like, if you have people who have the right attitude and want to learn, right? There's nothing wrong with teaching them. So that was a good learning experience for us and just our industry as a whole. But it definitely helped us get through, I'll say, COVID in that respect. And we've managed to get like a lot of great employees as a result. So.
And I say that a lot with, especially with my placement students, that, you know, anyone can learn the skills of a job, but it's having that fundamental sense of compassion and, you know, social justice. And like, those are things that can be acquired over the course of a lifetime, but often it helps if they're kind of innately embedded in us due to our life experience or where we come from. And to me, that is so much more important than like, do you have the specific skills of a job? Because anyone can learn this. That's very easy to train. But that X factor is so significant for doing the kind of work that we do. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything. Sadie, I'm not sure if you're present and want to throw anything in. I mean, this has been a great conversation. Fred Victor does have an employment training services program that does participate here and there in the network. They just had a job fair, I think, last month. That was a very successful event. You know, so I think it's really just a matter of ensuring that all those channels are kind of connected to each other and can communicate with each other. Troy, you came off mute there. Is there anything you wanted to add?
You know what? I agree with whatever Yvonne and you said. And for me, I just want to confirm that, yes, when I try to hire someone, attitude is the most important part for me, because the rest we can teach. Attitude is something that cannot be taught, you know, but we need to understand the population, the needs, and believe me, I'm going through hiring green population, coming to the board, not having the proper, you know, knowledge and expertise, and we put, you know, 20 people on their caseload, and they need to serve these people, and that brings a lot of challenge for us. That can create health and safety issues, that can create some risk issues, some, you know, and that's on the other side, when we talk about, you know, that body system, when we have mature case managers that can provide shadowing, that can lead, new staff, that can be a support for them to tap into when they need, that is very important for us. Whereas just hiring new people and trying to teach them and start from, 0 point, and, it's a little bit challenging, and it becomes more challenging when most of the team is hired from that population. So most of the resumes that I receive are coming right out of the college. No experience having contact with community, even though their education is in community setting. And, reading about something, whereas, being there, seeing that, reading that you may be exposed to bodily fluids, or, some sort of odors or whatsoever, is something. When you go actually in someone's house and you face with all of those, and you need to take care of your safety, and, that's totally different. So we had people who resigned, who, changed their job because of these issues. So it's challenging. Coming back to what you said, trying to reach out to other organizations that get their supports. Actually, one of the staff that I hired was, the resume was thrown on my table right before the closing of the posting, and we actually did the interview, and we hired this person, and she turned out to be a very good professional. But again, I spend 40 to 50% of my day on training staff, whereas I have lots of other duties, and that creates a gap. What I wanted to say, I don't know, maybe if we had a time in future, would be to kind of have shadowing with other organizations. You know what I'm saying? Like Fred Victor with other organizations, to learn from other services that are provided, so that these new green people that come on board and have no knowledge about the community, they can learn about services that is provided, and they can link clients easily and, sooner.
Now I will request each group to share about 1 or 2 main points from their discussion. And in the best interest of time, can I request each group to sort of limit their sharing to about 2 minutes? So which group would like to go first? Can we start with this group? Okay. Okay.
Thank you. We focused on local purchasing, and, we had a good discussion, but essentially we felt that, we need to start with the basics. So how do we go back to our agencies? How does that information or communication go out from all of us involved in St. Jamestown to our agencies? How do we bring that back to maybe a meeting or our supervisors and commit? The first thing is commitment. As an agency, just that verbal and spirit of commitment to purchasing locally is really important. That might then in turn translate into a policy, hopefully in the least a practice. I think many of us do that in practice, but maybe it turns into a policy, which makes it a little more concrete and top of mind. Something very basic, like a list of resources in our communities. And again, we're not necessarily talking just about St. Jamestown. Some of us work in other areas. Let's commit to doing that in all of the neighborhoods that we work in. So, but what are the resources out there? Like today, some people are hearing about AWAY, and this is the first time they're hearing about it. So more of that. And then we talked about the win-win. So for instance, a small agency in the community they might need some support with marketing. They might not know the agencies out there that are willing to work with them. So how do we find out about them? But vice versa, how do we support them? Maybe with capacity building, if we have those kinds of supports. Somebody mentioned there's already like many food activities and initiatives in St. Jamestown. How do we coordinate all of those? Perhaps more support with the community garden project. And another idea was marketing. Let's say we have holidays or events throughout the year. Perhaps with each of those events or holidays, we could tap a local business and they could provide, you know, a gift package that people could purchase and or give away. And that would be a sort of part of that marketing and PR for that agency to get known in the area. And I think that's most of it. Yes.
Thank you, Veronica.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. So in our group, we talked about place-based investment, but we also had discussion around what that meant, whether it meant investing in spaces physically as much as it is investing in people. And we did a bit of both. TNG mentioned that there is a budget towards modular housing, providing support workers for affordable housing, food bank, community dinners, but not necessarily in St. Jamestown. And if I missed anything, please let me know. And then Arvin gave us some great examples from the corner as well, that they had health and wellness ambassadors. And around this discussion, we really were speaking on investing in people in particular. So they hire from the community. They focus on producing organic foods. And they also have a catering collective, which is modeled on the Regent Park Catering Collective as well. And it really supports newcomers in particular, in specifically women. And so they've also are the ones who catered the food at the forum today. And they also run, that's good. Well, thank you to the corner and the catering collective for that. And a particular interest as well is a focal point for a space for a community to gather. One of the things is how to beautify the area. So by connecting with landowners, they were able to do gardens, murals, create a space of belonging. Landowners are happy with that as much as the residents are as well by investing in that space. For the health center, and what I mean by that is Regent Park Community Health Center, we also invest in youth and community, specifically around education. And with our Jobs for You program, we also look at youth and employment as well, and the barriers and strategies around that. And if there was examples from Turning Point as well, or? No. Okay. I just didn't want to miss everyone. Okay. Thank you. And that is it from us. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Who would like to share from this group?
Okay, it's me, Deborah Williams again. Our discussion around this table was around local and equitable hiring. And we started off with a bit about what are the pressing human resources needs. And there was a bit of discussion about, coming out of the pandemic, how expectations of employees have changed with regard to, expecting to be able to be flexible with working from home remotely and coming onto the physical site, and possibly pushback from the employer as to, no, you need to come here and be physically here. So a bit of negotiation happening there that was expressed among the agencies at the table here. Then we were talking a little bit about the HR approach to hiring externally. And there seemed to be kind of a consensus that, promoting and encouraging people internally in the organization is the good first step before going external. And creating those opportunities for advancement, professional development in that, before going external. That's what I heard here. There was also sharing of some personal experience as a newcomer, and really the challenges faced by a newcomer coming, you know, to the community, and facing those barriers to employment that really need to be addressed. So there was, you know, suggestions and discussion about training, about information, communicating what's available is very important to, you know, let people know, let folks know the opportunities that are available. And then we spoke a little bit, discussed a little bit about turnover and retention being identified as an issue. Our health services folks here shared that financial incentives were offered and seemed to be very successful to a certain extent. You know, bonuses of $2,000 if you stay for 2 years, which seems very, you know, a good incentive. But some being successful with that, and, you know, some not so successful. So that was like one of the strategies used. Let me see. Oh, and one of the things specifically about equitable hiring, the transparency. Like, even in the posting, the salary should be transparent. So that would eliminate, you know, when that person comes to you, when the candidate comes to you, there's no waffling because they're a newcomer or because, you know, they're a person of color. It's transparent. This is the salary being offered. So that was an important thing. We were talking about it should be embedded in your policy. Maybe it should be embedded in legislation. Who knows? Okay, it's coming.
Thank you, Deborah.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. My group is shy, so I'm sharing. So we talked about a lot of things, and we picked Ashley, local and equitable hiring, in the corner. Obviously, we can't beat that at this point. But we talked about a couple of things people can do and agencies and organizations can do. One of them is really changing the way hiring is done, the strategy of how it's done. We know that the resume doesn't really reflect the person. A lot of the time, it actually fails the person if it's not, you know, perfectly written. Depending on where you are, that perfection can be different. Thinking about that and really getting a commitment from the senior leadership. I think that's how strategies change, obviously, and mentorship, paid mentorship, to be very specific. A lot of the time, people who might actually go to this mentorship, they choose not to, even if it's available, because they have to pay rent. So thinking about that and making sure it is a payment that's available, that way people can choose that, that way they can get into the field they would like to be in. And then there's actually a really great idea that was shared here, creating a database of resumes from a community. Just to be sure, like, community can be different. We know Airway like serves a different community. It doesn't necessarily have to be a physical space community, so it could be newcomers, could be a different community, women could be different community. So we have different communities we serve. That database could serve. We know that big organization probably you do not want to maintain it, don't want to create it, but communities can create it themselves, but create a partnership with these big agencies to tap into that. We know there are also unions, right? So if a position is not filled, tap into that database to fill from that specific community. Sounds like a project to us, so we don't know who wants to take it on. But yeah, we have a lot more, so we're just going to leave it there for now. Thank you.
And last but not the least.
Yeah, I guess because I'm not the note taker. I don't know if we came in up with any real conclusions. I can talk about what we talked about. We talked about local and equitable hiring, and so we went around the table and everybody talked about if their organization, you know, hired locally and equitably, and overall not so much. Most groups it was more merit-based, although the neighborhood organization, I think a majority of their hires they do at least live locally in the area. And there was mention of some jobs that were offered especially to people who are low income, marginalized, but often those are like temporary positions, 6 months to a year, rather than really good permanent jobs. And the Community Food Center of Canada, they are trying to hire a few people from the community, and they're trying to figure out how to hire both merit-based and based on lived experience. They're looking for models on how to do this, which I thought was interesting. And does anybody want to add anything? No. Okay. Okay.
We also have one other group that was online. So Rob, can I turn over to you?
Yes, absolutely. I'm mindful of time, so I'll just provide a very quick summary. We had a really interesting discussion. One of the primary points that was highlighted is that there's just a massive crisis and shortage of available, not necessarily available staff, but trained staff, and retention is really difficult because, for example, people can work for the city and make $10 more an hour than they can with our organizations. So how do we incentivize working with organizations such as ours? I think is challenging. It was discussed about, hiring for attitude more than aptitude, because, anybody can be trained. However, that does place a strain sometimes on management when, half your time is spent doing training, when you have a whole bunch of other responsibilities. So there was some discussion ultimately in our group about sharing communications between our organizations and locations about job postings, as well as providing shadowing opportunities with other organizations so we can learn from each other and maybe try and balance some of that strain that we're having internally. So, a great site for that could be this network, because there are so many of us that work in tandem with each other. And that was a really interesting idea from Dro. So perhaps something we can all look at exploring as we move forward. So thank you. I'll turn it back to whoever's on site.
Thank you, Rob and company. Okay, so just a few last points before we leave. Number one, please complete the participant survey. The second last page of your handout, there's a QR code. You can access it that way. It's page 14. Or you can fill out the paper form on your tables. Okay, so please do that. It really helps us for future events. Number two, don't worry about
I was just going to say for the online participants,
they're going to wrap up all of the great information that you've shared and discussed, and we will provide a summary of all of that to everybody that attended here today. So thank you for that. We plan to commit these events yearly. And participants to dedicate an internal, what we would also suggest and ask of you today, if you could go back to your agencies and teams and think about somebody in your organization who has the capacity, the skill, and the passion to champion community wealth building and potentially join regular meetings within this community to help further that initiative. And thank you, of course, to all the volunteers, the corner staff, to the catering collective, to WCC for hosting us. Anna, Teresa, thank you very much for your awesome coordination. Excellent job. And I know there was a team effort, so thank you to the team as well. Thank you all for coming. This brings us to the end of the forum. And there's lunch. After all that food we had today, there's lunch. Grab a lunch and take it to go. Thank you.
Thanks everyone online. I have put a link to the survey in the chat, so if you feel free to click on that. We take your feedback very seriously, and we really integrate it into our subsequent forums and events. So don't hold back with your feedback there, positive or areas that we could improve. And thanks for being here. It was really good to see you, Dro and Yvonne. It's been a while, so thanks for your input, and I'm sure we will all be in touch very soon.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Rob and students. I'm always motivated to see your work, and, all this fresh blood brings a lot of energy to the table. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, William, Lamine, and Christina, for your wonderful support and facilitation, and to John and Sandesh for taking notes. It's a team effort. It takes a village. So
Yeah.
enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Have a good weekend, good holiday.